Hey y'all, No here. Well, it's almost Christmas, and so we've got our one last lesson about Christmas before Christmas. And this week's lesson is really one of my favorite lessons of the whole year. Uh, I'm a big fan of Christmas. I love Christmas. I always have. It's my favorite holiday. There's just something about it that is just extra special to me. It always has been. So we're going to be talking about one of the names that Jesus had given to him. And you might say it's a nickname. And that's how I usually would open this lesson, is I would ask my students if any of them had a nickname, and usually some of them did, and then I would ask them if they knew what Jesus's nickname was. And most people don't think about it that way, but actually Jesus had a nickname. And it's found in Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 23. And it says, "Now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child by the Holy Spirit. And Joseph, her husband, being a righteous man and not wanting to disgrace her, desired to put her away secretly. But when he had considered this, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for that which has been conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. And she shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for it is he who will save his people from their sins." So there we find out what Jesus' given name was. Now we're going to find out what his nickname was. Now all this took place, that what was spoken through the Lord, let me start over. Now all this took place, that what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet might be fulfilled, saying, Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and shall bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which translated means God with us. And so Isaiah's prophecy is saying what Jesus' nickname would be is found in Isaiah 7:14. And I think the reason this is my favorite lesson is because Jesus' nickname defines so accurately who he was and who he still is. He is God with us. Jesus was 100% God and 100% little baby. And that's just an amazing thing to consider and think about. We tend to, when we think about the birth of Christ, we tend to think about what happened after he was born. But really, if we want to fully appreciate what God did for us, what Jesus did for us, even beyond what he did for us on the cross and through living his life perfectly, but if we back up to the time when it was time for Jesus to leave heaven and come to earth and become one of us and go through all the things that we have to go through, I mean, if you think the place he came from and the place he had to come to, you know, he was in heaven where the angels worshiped him constantly. He was in a perfect place that we can't even imagine how great it is. But he was willing to give all that up. You know, he left a place where he was worshiped constantly and where it was light with no darkness. There's no night in heaven. It's light all the time, for God is the light. And so if you think about the steps that happened, you know, the first thing that happened when Jesus got to earth is he had to spend 9 months in total darkness inside Mary's womb. And, you know, how all that was put together and, you know, how Jesus was conceived and how he grew in the womb and all those things, you know, we have no idea exactly how God did that, but we know that God did do that. And so, first of all, leaves a place where it's light and never darkness, and then has to spend 9 months in a place where there's total darkness. And then finally the time comes for Jesus to be born. And so let's go to Matthew chapter 1 and see what the very first few breaths of Jesus were like. So we're going to start in chapter 2, verse 1 of the Gospel of Luke, which reads like this. Now it came about in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that a census should be taken of all the inhabited earth. This was the first census taken when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And all were proceeding to register for the census, everyone to his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the city of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and family of David. And they went in order to register along with Mary, who was engaged to him and was with child. And it came about that while they were there, the days were completed for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and she wrapped him in cloths and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. So, Jesus spends his first 9 months in total darkness. Then, when he is finally born, where is he born? In some stable somewhere, where, you know, the first thing he felt was probably the cold night air. The first thing he saw was, you know, a bunch of animals and some shepherds that showed up. The first thing he smelt was the smell that you normally smell in a stable, which is manure. The first thing he heard may have been the braying of a donkey or the mooing of a cow. So just think about where Jesus came from and what his first hours on this planet were like, and what a difference that was. But the willingness of Jesus to make that sacrifice for us, even before the cross, to leave his perfect place and come down and start his life the way he started his life. And not like we started our lives in a nice, warm, clean, sterile hospital with a bunch of doctors to take care of him, but in a cold, dark, smelly, noisy stable that was the only place that they could find for him. It's truly amazing what Jesus did for us way before even the cross. Now, this week's craft is probably one of the hardest ones that we will do the whole year. But I would dare to say that of all the things that your students make or your kids make, if you're doing this for your own children, it's going to be probably the one thing that you as their parents or your students' parents will hold on to for many years to come. So let's go to the craft now. Well, I would like to show you the finished product like I usually do, but unfortunately, I don't have one. I guess I've given away all of these particular crafts, but just to kind of give you a general idea of what it is, it's a candle holder that has Emmanuel, or it's going to have Emmanuel on the front of it, with 3 holes drilled in the top. And this particular block that I'm using, you may or may not choose to use the same size. So if we measure it up here on the end, it is 1 3/8 inches tall. That is measuring from the top where the candles are going to fit into the holes down to the bottom. 1 3/8. And then if we measure front to back, this direction, that is 1.5 inches from here to here. Now, you don't necessarily have to use that size. And there's a couple of different things I've tried in the past to make the blanks out of. I've used 2x2s, I think. And then at times I've actually taken a 2x4 and ripped a 2x4 down the center. But you'll have to decide what size block of wood that you want to use. But that size worked for me. Now, this will give you a little bit better idea of what the finished product is going to look like. So if you can see that, you can see that I've spelled out Emmanuel with the I spelling and not the E spelling. And you can almost see that. The reason why I use the I spelling is because the piece parts that you're going to use to make the E are very difficult to make. The ones you use to make the I are very easy to make. Now, we're going to use popsicle sticks, craft sticks, to make the parts that are going to go where the dark color is now. And so really, the first thing you want to do once you decide what size block of wood you're going to use is to saw out one block of wood, and then that's going to determine what size this is. Or you can make this and use that to decide what size block of wood you're going to make. But this is made out of poster board. This is made out of pine lumber. Poster board is cheap. The 2x2s or whatever you decide to use, not as cheap as poster board. So I would suggest finalize the size that the block is going to be, and then make your stencil to make the letters with. So I'm going to turn it. Oh, and you're going to stain it. I use like a walnut stain with polyurethane. You can either use a spray polyurethane to make it shiny. This was not too shiny. I don't think I polyurethaned it yet. But you can get stained with the polyurethane already in it, or varnish it after it's finished to make it shiny, whichever you decide to do. So we're going to try to bring this up close to the camera so you can see that I've got all these little blocks numbered, okay? And for each one of these numbers, there's going to be a piece of popsicle stick that's going to go on top of this outline. So once you get your first piece of wood sawed out, and by the way, if you don't have an assistant teacher, get somebody to help you during this craft, because it is long, and you're just going to need help passing things out and making sure that your students do everything the right way. So once you got your block of wood sawn out, get you a piece of poster board and just draw out, turn it this way so it's not upside down for you. So you're going to basically draw the negative. So you're going to draw the letters on your piece of poster board, and then take a utility knife, or an X-Acto knife would work even better, and then just gently cut out the squares that are in between each letter. Then once you get this stencil made, and again, I'm going to make it upside down for you so that I don't go in the wrong order. So we're going to put each end at the end of the block of wood. And what I've found from experience is that an easy way to hold that in place while you're marking on the block of wood with the stencil is to just put some push pins into the block of wood to hold it in place for you. Whoops, got crooked on that one. Yeah, that's better. So you want this top line, you don't want anything showing through once you get it thumbtacked down. If you do, then you don't have it on there straight. Now, you may decide to do some other kind of craft. especially depending on how many students you have, because it is very time consuming making all these piece parts that your students are going to be using. Now, if you're just teaching your own children, or just have 2 or 3 students in your class, that's not going to be so hard. But even for just 2 or 3, it takes a lot of time and a lot of work to make all these piece parts. So I'm going to start at this end. Let me put it right side up for you for now. So just going to take a fine point Sharpie and it's going to go around the stencil. Try to make sure you don't miss any lines. Like that. All right, here's the inside of the M, the first M anyway. And you just keep going that way all the way up to the end. I'm not going to do the whole thing for you because this one's already done. I just wanted to show you how to do it. Right, and then once you get all of these lines in, you can probably see that each space is numbered. And so I'm actually gonna darken these numbers in a little bit better so you can see them. But this is exactly what you would do once you get your blocks marked. 3, 4, 5. And you can see some of these parts are going to be the same. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13 and 14 are going to be the hardest parts to make because they're not rectangular, they're actually triangular. And it's pretty difficult to cut a craft stick on an angle, but I'll show you how to do it. 18, 19, 20, and the biggest piece is number 21 up here on the end. Now, at some point in the process, you're going to want to take some Elmer's glue and glue a piece of shelf liner on the bottom. Just cut out strips like this, glue them to the bottom. And the reason you want to do that is mainly so that it will keep this candle holder from sliding on a table, okay? Because if you put this on a table and light some candles, you don't want it to, somebody hit it and knock it over. So a little bit of shelf liner kind of gives it a little bit of grip on whatever surface you've got it on. Again, lighted candles can catch things on fire, so you want to be extra safe. Okay, so that has got the block of wood and the numbers and the stencil covered. Now, let me kind of explain why all of these are numbered. And you may have guessed it already. This is going to help us identify which piece goes where. Okay, so that's why they're all numbered 1 to 21. And yes, it does take 21 individual pieces to spell out the name Emmanuel. But you may have noticed that several of them are identical to each other. Like number 3 is identical to number 6, which is identical to number 9, which is identical to number 12, and 15, 17. So there's a lot of them that are the same. But the other reason that they're numbered like this is that's how you're going to hand them out to your students as they make the candle holder. And what I have used in the past is just some solo cups. Okay, and so this is number 21 and 20 and all the way down to number 1. Okay, so I've got them all. I've got all my piece parts in each cup that's numbered. And so I usually go from left to right. So I stack the cups up with the number 1 on the top and number 21 on the bottom. Okay, so next I'm going to go through each piece part and show you how to make each one. Now, I'm not going to tell you the exact dimensions to use because unless you use exactly the same size block of wood as I do, they may or may not be the same. Okay. So, piece number 1 is going to go right there. And so, just coincidentally, it's not really coincidence because I planned it that way, or maybe God planned it that way, but all of these piece parts that go up and down, I made them the same width as a narrow craft stick. So, if I was going to make the piece part for this number 1, I'm going to go to my stencil, and it's going to be the same size as the hole in the stencil. So a real easy tool to cut most of these with, if you've got a pair of pruning shears, or you can get your hands on a pair of pruning shears, you can use a pruning shear to cut across pretty easily. You can't even do it with a pair of scissors, but it'll really dull a pair of scissors pretty quickly. So I got the end of the craft stick cut off, except I cut it just a little bit crooked. Yeah, that's a better one. And then Just going to put that in front of my stencil. Mark a line across there. And cut it like that. All right, let's see how good of a fit we got. Pretty good. Good enough, I would say. Now, you'll notice number 1 and number 2 are the same. So, every how many students you have, you know, you can make all the 1s, but I don't suggest putting the 1s and the 2s in the same cup, even though they are identical. Because it's just going to make it easier not to get out of order and to make sure you have enough. So this is number 1, so I would make as many of these number 1 pieces as I think I'm going to need. Make sure you make extra in case somebody drops one, because they're pretty easy to lose. So anyway, I would make all the number 1s, put them in a cup. Then I go to number 2, and then I'm going to make them the same exact way that I made the number 1s. Okay, then we come to number 3, which is right here. So it's going to fit right there. So I'm going to measure that off right there. And then same way. Take your pruning shears, make yourself a cut, check it to make sure it's the right size, and it is. And then, you know, once you get this one made, then you can just take a bunch of craft sticks and use that to mark off ever how many that you're going to need. And cut it. All right, so that's all of our number 3s. Number 3. And then we're ready for number 4. And this is going to be the inside part of the M. So I'm going to put in our stencil there to get the size of it. Now it's going to take a whole stick to make this piece and this piece, and then when you get to the other end, it's going to take another whole stick to make this piece and this piece. So you may want to make these pieces first, because to make these pieces, we're going to cut it like that so that we don't have to cut this arc around there. So get that piece made, then the other 4 pieces are going to be the same, so then we can come up to this end and use the piece that we just cut to mark the next one. And the next one and the next one. So that when you get finished making all 4 of these, whoops, probably can't see it from there. Once you get finished making all 4 of these pieces, that's going to leave you with several pieces like this that you can then use to make these pieces. Okay, so that got us to number 4, which is right here. So even though they're identical, though, we're still going to number our cups the same way we did for the rest of them. So there's number 4. So, and then next one is just like it, number 5. So here's our cup number 5. So we're going to put all of the pieces we need for that in number 5. And then you can kind of see that because a lot of these are the same, it's going to be easier than you think that it might. So here's number 6. That's going to be this piece, which is exactly like number 3. So I'm not going to go through. You've already seen how I make number 3. You're going to make number 6 the same exact way. And then when you come to piece number 7, you're going to make it just like you made number 4 and number 5. And then obviously number 8 is going to be made just like number 7. Number 9 is going to be made just like number 6 and number 3. All right, and here is a different shaped piece right here. You hold it up a little closer so you can see. And that is number 10, which is going to be the hole that is on the inside of the A. So the A takes one rounded block and one square block. So let's make number 10 first, which is going to be the rounded one. And again, you're probably going to want to make all of the pieces that you use the narrow craft stick for, make all the pieces that are rounded on the end before you make just the plain old rectangular ones. All right, so we're going to put it on a stencil like that. And mark it. And you can use your pruning shears to cut this one too. But the hardest part about using the pruning shears is keeping your pieces from flying across the room when you cut them. So let's see if that fits pretty good. Yeah, I like that. So that's number 10. Number 11 is going to go right down here. It is, you're going to make it in a similar way to the way that you made number 1, number 2, 3, 6, all the rectangular pieces. It's just going to be shorter. So it's going to be that length. Almost looks like if I cut these pieces in two, I have 2 of them. Works out that way sometimes. And guess God was looking out for me, because when I cut that one, it split in 2. But this one is still intact. Let's see how it fits. Yeah, that should work nicely. So that's going to go in number 11. All right, and then number 12 is going to be just like number 9, number 6, number 3. You're going to make them exactly the same way. All right, then we come to number 13. And that's not a very easy one at all. So what we're going to use to make those pieces with is going to be some wider craft sticks, because you can see it's just not a narrow craft stick, just wouldn't quite be wide enough. And so I'll get you up a little bit closer again. So if you see number 13 there and number 14 there, those are the triangular shaped pieces that I was telling you about. So a good place to start on these triangular shaped pieces is to just cut the ends off of your craft stick. Now, unfortunately, these wide craft sticks are not nearly as thick as these narrow ones. You may be able to see the difference on the camera there. See how this one is thicker than this one? And because of that, if you try to cut this with pruning shears, inevitably it's just going to split down the middle. So these are the hardest ones to make of all. Probably what you're going to want to do is get you a utility knife or X-Acto knife, and then just going to take the pointy end of your knife, don't push down too hard, and just kind of score that. Just keep going across it. Again, not pushing down too awfully hard so you don't split it. And also not pushing down too hard so that you don't jump out of the groove in the craft stick that you've already made. I think my blade's getting a little dull. Let's try to turn it around. By the way, if anybody comes up with an easier way to make these triangular shaped pieces, please leave some instructions in the comments box. Okay, so that's got the end cut off. And so what I have done is you'll notice that the bottom of the triangle is the same width as the craft stick. So what you're going to do to make these pieces is actually use the stencil to mark it on your craft stick. So it's going to be something like that right there. And unfortunately, you're going to need a utility or X-Acto knife to cut this too, because if you try cutting this line with the printing shears, it's going to just split into several pieces. So we're just going to gently, especially until we get a groove started, come across there. And be extra careful, because you can slice your finger up pretty easily. Probably should be cutting away from me like this, but it's not too easy to keep in a straight line when you're pulling away from yourself. Yeah, still don't quite have it. X-Acto knife probably would work better than utility knife, because I suspect that an X-Acto knife blade is just a little bit thinner than my utility knife blade. So what number are we on again? 13. Yeah. So let's see how well that one turned out. Well, pretty good actually. So then you can see how, and I'm not going to cut another one because they're going to be the same. So the other half is going to go like that. And so you can see how those two triangles make the shape of the N. So these triangular pieces have always been the hardest ones to make for me. And I suspect they will be for you too, unless you find a thicker piece of wide craft stick. All right, so that's 13 and 14. Number 15 is going to be another repeated one. 15 is just like 12 and 9 and 6 and 3. So no need to show you how to make that one over again. 15. 16 is also just like piece number 4, 5, 7, and 8. It's just turned upside down. So your M was made like that. Your U is going to be made like that. All right, and then 17 is just like 15 and all the other pieces that were the same way. So because so many of them are alike, this looks a lot harder. Well, don't let me fool you. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. But thinking about making 21 pieces, it's not really like making 21 pieces because a lot of them are alike. All right, and unfortunately, the pieces for 18 and 19, you would think, well, they'll just be just like 17 and 15 were, but unfortunately, they're not. They're just a little bit, actually, it's going to be half of a 9 and half of a 15. You're going to split your craft stick down the middle. And that's not too easily done, but it can be done. So I'm going to just mark the stick in the middle. So you want to be pretty accurate with this. So that each half ends up being the same. And so the easiest way I found to split these things in half, probably the safest way also, is again just to take a utility or X-Acto knife. Don't press very hard on the first trip so that it goes straight. And then you're just going to keep tracing through the same groove. I don't think you could do this with the pruning shears, but I never have tried it, so if you want to try it, give it a try. Craft sticks aren't that expensive. And then I'm going to turn it around to get the other end. And then because these sticks are thicker than the wide ones, once you have it scored, you can give it a little kind of a break in there, and then that's going to make it easier to finish up your cut. Yeah, see how that lets it just come right on open. And so you'll have a rounded piece on each end. We can cut across the grain and it won't split. So then we'll come back to our stencil. And so I'm going to fit that piece right in there. Make a line like that. Notice how it doesn't go past here, okay? All right, so there's one. Let's check our fit just to make sure we're okay. Yeah, I like that. And then we can use that one to mark the next one. All right, so now we've got two of them. So one's going to be number 18. Let me show you on this piece, 18 and 19. Yep. All right, so that took care of 18. And 19. And so that means you're ready for number 20. Now I'm going to put number 20 in place, and that will show you why you don't want these pieces to be too long, because if they're too long, then they're going to try to knock number 20 over. So you don't want that. You want these pieces to come right up next to number 20. Okay, so there's number 20. And then the last one is going to be obviously number 21. And it's going to go like that. So let's just start out with a new craft stick. I did actually manage to cut that one with a piece of pruning shears. So if we put it on our stencil, And we'll cut it like that. And you can see on these rectangular pieces, I am actually able to cut it with the pruning shears without making it split in the middle. You may have some that do split in the middle, but it's still gonna, even if you have some that split, it's still gonna be a lot easier than trying to cut it with this knife for all the wide pieces. So that's gonna fit in like that. Okay, and so what you're going to use to glue the pieces on with is just regular Elmer's glue. And what I found that works best is just give each kid or have them share a small bottle of Elmer's glue. And what you want to do is just put a couple of dots on top of the numbers. And I don't have a Q-tip handy with me, but you know, you put a couple of dots, take a Q-tip, pretend this is a Q-tip, and you're just going to kind of rub it around. So let's actually see if we can do this without actually putting the glue on it. So there's number one. And you can see I'm going one number at a time. So there's number one. And so you pass out all your number one pieces. Wait till everybody gets their piece glued on. And then you take up the cup for number one. Well, actually, you don't give them the cup. But you know, you put the number one cup to the side. And then we're going to pass out all the pieces to each student for number two. So a couple of dots of glue there, smeared around on number two. All right, so that makes our eye. Get finished with all of those. And then we'll go to number three. And let me just say this. You want to guard this stack of cups like it was gold, because if you drop this stack of cups, you will never, maybe I shouldn't say never, it would take an hour to get them all sorted back if you spill your stack of cups. So you want to treat them like they're worth $1 million. So then number three, maybe 3 dots of glue for number three. Glue that piece on. Number four. Pass all those out. 2 or 3 drops of glue. Dots of glue is what I like to call them. Make sure that none of the pieces are sticking out past the bottom. If you're sticking out past the bottom, then your candle holder is not going to sit flat on the table. So, you know, you may want to even, use a craft stick to check to make sure that none of the pieces are going below the bottom. If they stick out above the top, that's not really a big deal. But if they're sticking out past the bottom, then that's going to be a problem. Right, so that was number 4. You finish all those. And even though piece number 4 and piece number 5 are identical to each other, we're still going to treat them as if they were different. So there's number 5. Number 6. Number 7. And you can see it will go faster than you think. It doesn't take long to put a couple of dots of glue on there and put the popsicle stick on. So that was number 7. Number 8. What you do have to be careful of is once you get all the pieces glued on, you got to handle it very delicately, because until the glue dries, if you drop it, all the pieces are going to come unglued. Number 9. Number 10. Little fingers can glue these pieces on easier than adult fingers. All right, so that makes the circular hole in the A. Number 11. Make sure that the grain is running up and down. It's pretty much a square, but I'm not sure if it's a square or not, and depending on the size block of wood you use, yours may end up being a little bit rectangular. Okay, so we're coming right along. So we've got I, M, M, A. Not quite an A yet because I still got to do the other side. So what do we need here? Number 12. All right, number 12. Whoops. So there's 12. And 13. So on the triangular pieces, you're going to want the grain to run left to right because you want the hypotenuse of the triangle, or the long side of the triangle, to be the diagonal part of the end. So that was 13. And 14 is going to go on almost the same way. Except the point's going to be going in the opposite direction. And 15. $16. Which is just like the piece that we used to make the M's, except it's upside down and it makes a U. The letter U, not you. Only God can make you. You're unique. And 17. $18. $19. And again, making sure that this end doesn't go out past the line. I think you can see that from there. So you don't want these to go past that line. And we're almost finished. Then number 20. And last but not least, literally, because number 21 is the biggest piece of all. And it's going to go right there to make the L. So, without actually gluing them in place, if you use a little imagination, and it helps if you're not standing too close to the candle holder, you will see I, M, M, A, N, U, E, L. Emmanuel. So I hope I have demonstrated how to make everything that you need to make. It's taken me longer to teach you how to do it than to actually do it, probably. Maybe one more thing to cover. Oh yeah, I think I did not tell you what diameter to drill the holes for the candle. And maybe it's good that I didn't tell you. These size candles here are the size candles that these particular candle holders are made for. And so the diameter that you want to drill is 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch hole, and I've drilled mine 1/2 an inch deep, and that's enough. Let me get, it's already been opened. Yeah, so that's a big enough hole that you can press the candle down into. And I usually light the candles for a few minutes because it's perfectly safe to do it indoors because this holds it good and tight. I usually get a birthday cake too, because after all, we're celebrating Jesus' birthday, and it's kind of an extra treat. And so you can light the candles and sing happy birthday to Jesus, and then eat some cake. At least once that I can remember, I don't know if somebody opened the door or whatever, but I can remember one time that at least one of the candles blew out while we were singing happy birthday to Jesus. I'm not saying that there was something supernatural about that, but it was pretty cool when it happened. All right, I know this has been very long and very involved. You're going to have to decide if you actually want to do this craft or not. If you got the time and the tools and the expertise, it makes a very cool thing for your kids to take home with you. And it, like I said during the lesson time, this candle holder will be something that that your students will enjoy putting on the center of their table during the Christmas meal and lighting the candles. And I think it looks pretty good, actually. I think it's very unique. But yeah, I wouldn't be ashamed and I have put these on my table and lit the candles in the past too, because I think it looks maybe not as good as a store-bought one, but a very nice one anyway. All right, so Merry Christmas to all of you. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions or you have any ideas about the ways that this can be done better, just leave a comment in the comments box. So this will conclude our last Christmas lesson. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. God bless you all, and Feliz Navidad.